A simple 1993 D. Lincoln cent. Dull, brown, nothing special at first glance. But when one sharp-eyed collector decided to take a closer look, what he found shocked the entire coin world. That little copper-colored coin, pulled from a handful of pocket change, was later valued at over $1.2 million. It's the kind of story that sounds impossible, until you realize how many people have made similar discoveries. Every year, ordinary Americans stumble upon coins that rewrite their financial lives. And this particular 1993 D penny is one of those legends. Now, before you rush to check your own change, let's talk about how this all started. Back in 1993, the Denver Mint was striking billions of pennies, over 6 billion to be exact. Machines were running nonstop. In all that chaos, a few coins were struck using slightly misaligned dies, some using leftover copper planchets instead of the zinc ones required by law. These mistakes, invisible to most, created coins unlike any other. One of these flawed 1993 D. Lincoln cents slipped into circulation unnoticed. It passed through hands, maybe used to buy coffee, maybe left in a drawer, forgotten for decades. But one day, a man sorting through old jars of change spotted something strange. The penny's color looked deeper, richer, almost like old copper. He put it under a magnifying glass, and his heart nearly stopped. The surface shimmered differently. The weight wasn't quite right. He'd found one of the rarest errors ever produced by the Denver Mint. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin went up for appraisal, even seasoned numismatists couldn't believe what they were seeing. The die alignment was off just enough to expose a subtle double image on Lincoln's profile. The mint mark D was slightly misplaced, evidence of a die rotation error. And most shockingly, the composition wasn't zinc-coated steel like most 1993 pennies. It was nearly pure copper, the kind that hadn't been used since the early 1980s. That discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting community. People were tearing through their coin jars, hoping lightning might strike twice. Dealers were calling each other late into the night, asking the same question: "Did you hear about the $1 million 1993 D?" For months, rumors spread. Some thought it was a fluke. Others insisted there had to be more of them out there. But then another example surfaced. In near-perfect condition, graded MS-68 red by a top grading service. It sold privately for a jaw-dropping amount, nearly matching that first $1 million figure. The answer lies in what's invisible to the naked eye. These rare 1993 D pennies show a perfect storm of minting anomalies: slight die cracks along the rim, misaligned strikes that shift Lincoln's portrait just a fraction of a millimeter, and a metallic composition error that defied federal standards. In short, the Mint accidentally created a masterpiece, and yet, most people who hold one in their hands would never know that. Here's the part that makes your heart race. These coins were never meant to exist, but because they slipped through quality control unnoticed, they're hiding in circulation. That means one could easily be sitting in your change jar, mixed among 1,000 ordinary pennies. Imagine checking your coins tonight and realizing one of them, a coin you've ignored for years, could be worth over $1 million. That kind of discovery changes lives. It's happened before, and it's happening again. First, check the mint mark. You're looking for a clear, bold D just below the date. On some of these valuable examples, the mint mark appears slightly off-center or even slightly doubled. It's subtle, so use magnification if you can. Second, pay attention to the color. Most 1993 pennies are dull and grayish due to the zinc core. But these rare versions have a deep reddish tone, a sign they were struck on leftover copper planchets from pre-1982 stock. A simple digital scale can help confirm it. A normal 1993 D penny weighs about 2.5 grams, but the valuable copper ones weigh closer to 3.1 grams. That tiny difference could mean the difference between a penny and a fortune. Third, inspect Lincoln's profile. On the rare error strikes, you'll notice a faint doubling on his chin or nose. Sometimes, even the lettering, especially the word Liberty, shows a ghost-like second impression. That's what collectors call a doubled die, and it sends value soaring. But the most telling clue of all is condition. If your coin is bright red with minimal wear, the value multiplies exponentially. Some of the top-graded examples have fetched prices in the hundreds of thousands, and the finest known specimens are estimated at well over $1 million. And yet, this story isn't just about money. It's about rediscovering value in what most people overlook. It's about that spark of hope every collector feels when they flip a coin over and think. One retired machinist from Ohio shared his story. He'd been collecting pennies for years, mostly out of habit. One day, while organizing his collection, he weighed a 1993 D penny that felt slightly heavier. He sent it for grading, and weeks later, he got the call that changed his life. His coin was an ultra-rare copper strike, nearly flawless, and valued at more than $900,000. He said, "I almost spent it on coffee." Moments like that remind us that luck favors the curious. These discoveries don't happen by chance. They happen because someone cared enough to look closer. So, before you empty your pockets tonight, take a moment. That ordinary-looking penny might hold an extraordinary secret. Check for that Denver D, that weight just above 3 grams, that unmistakable glow of true copper. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still whispering. And hidden among billions of pennies, a few treasures remain undiscovered. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Yours could too. But when a sharp-eyed collector took a second look, what he found changed his life forever. It wasn't just another old cent from the 90s. It was a 1998 D Lincoln penny, and it sold for nearly $1.3 million. Now, you might be thinking, how could a penny from the late 90s, a coin that most of us used to buy a stick of gum, possibly be worth a fortune? Well, that's where the story gets wild. Because this isn't just about one lucky find. It's about one of the most mysterious, unexpected treasures in modern coin history. It all started in Denver, 1998. The U.S. Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. Copper-plated zinc, standard design, nothing out of the ordinary, or so they thought. But hidden among those countless coins were a handful that were never meant to exist. They carried a minting flaw so subtle, so rare, that even experienced dealers dismissed them for years. One man in Colorado did what millions of people do every day. He paid for his coffee, got his change, and tossed a few coins on his dashboard. Weeks later, while cleaning his car, he noticed something strange. The penny's lettering looked slightly doubled, like a faint shadow behind each word. He almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of him. That decision would change his life forever. He took it to a local coin shop, expecting a polite nod and maybe a few bucks for the curiosity. But when the dealer pulled out a magnifier, his jaw dropped. The D Mint mark looked perfectly struck, but the rest of the design, it shimmered with a doubling effect seen only in the rarest errors. This wasn't damage. This was a true double die, the kind that can make or break a collector's career. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Experts confirmed that this coin had been struck with a misaligned die during a rare press calibration. Only a handful are known to exist, and every time one appears, it creates a frenzy at auctions. Dealers rush to grab them. Collectors trade rumors. And for those who still search through their change, it's become a modern legend. The 1998 D penny that could make you a millionaire. What makes it so valuable isn't just the error itself. It's how perfectly preserved it is. Most coins from the 90s are scratched, worn, or corroded. But this one was pristine. Sharp edges, clean surfaces, deep red luster. The kind of condition grading companies dream of finding. When it finally went to auction, the bids climbed fast. 50,000, 100,000, then 200. Before anyone could blink, it shattered expectations, closing at a mind-boggling $1.3 million. Collectors were stunned. How could a penny worth 1 cent turn into a millionaire's dream overnight? The answer lies in the details, and these details are what you need to look for. Look closely at the word liberty. On the genuine rare error, the letters show a distinct doubling effect, especially around the B and E. The date, too, 1998, has a faint shadowing that looks almost like a reflection underneath. Under magnification, you can see the secondary impression caused by the die's slight rotation during striking. And that Denver D Mint mark? It's bold and centered, unlike the misaligned or repunched versions that some people mistake for the real deal. But here's where many go wrong. Some confuse machine doubling, which is a flat, shelf-like distortion, with a true double die. Machine doubling doesn't increase value. But a real double die? That's the million-dollar jackpot. The trick is to look for rounded, well-defined doubling, not flat or smeared letters. And it's not just about the error. Condition matters more than ever. A worn example might fetch a few hundred or even a few $1,000s. But a mint state 1998 D double die penny with blazing red luster and no visible damage could easily reach 6 or 7 figures. Imagine that. A coin sitting in your drawer, the same kind you've ignored for decades, could pay off your house, your car, maybe even fund your retirement. It's the kind of story that gives every collector hope. And it's not just luck, it's awareness. People who study, who learn what to look for, are the ones who find the miracles. But this story doesn't end there. Every time one of these 1998 D pennies appears, it reignites the hunt. Pawn shops get calls. Coin forums light up. People across America start dumping out their jars, searching for that familiar Lincoln face with the hidden secret. Because deep down, everyone wants to believe that a life-changing discovery could be sitting in plain sight. And here's a twist most don't know. The U.S. Mint never officially acknowledged the error. That silence only fuels the mystery. Some numismatists believe it was caused by an unreported die rework. Others think it was an early test strike that slipped into general circulation. Either way, its rarity and controversy make it one of the most desirable modern pennies ever made. Go through your change. Check those old jars, the coin rolls in your drawers, the pennies gathering dust in a cup by the door. Look for the 1998 D. Get a magnifier. Study the date. Examine the word liberty. Check for that perfect, rounded doubling. Because if you find it, and it's in mint condition, you could be holding a ticket to $1 million payday that it's happened before. It can happen again. And the next great discovery might not come from a museum, a mint, or a famous collector. It might come from someone like you, just paying for coffee, getting change, and deciding to take a closer look. This coin is proof that history hides in the smallest things. That even a single penny can carry $1 million secret. So don't ignore your change. Don't underestimate that dull-looking cent in your pocket. Because somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered, is another 1998 D Lincoln penny, and it's worth up to $1.3 million. But when it was examined under the right light, collectors froze in disbelief. That single 1991 D Lincoln penny, the kind most of us toss into the cup holder or give to the cashier, was suddenly valued at over $1.4 million. Imagine that, a single cent, forgotten for decades, becoming the key to a millionaire's story. You might be thinking, how could something so ordinary become so powerful? That's where the story gets strange. In 1991, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. Billions, actually. But somewhere along the line, deep inside that roaring factory, something happened. A handful of pennies were minted with a flaw so subtle, so rare, that even seasoned collectors overlooked it for years. That it wasn't until a small-town coin dealer stumbled on one that the legend began. He almost spent it. He'd been rolling up change one night, a mix of old and new cents, when he noticed something about the shine. The D mint mark looked off. Not just weakly struck, it was slightly misaligned, sitting lower than it should. And the color of the copper wasn't quite right either, darker, almost with a golden hue. He put it aside, curious, not realizing that penny would rewrite his life. A few months later, during a local coin show, he casually mentioned it to a fellow collector. They examined it under magnification, and both went silent. What they found sent chills down their spines. The coin was struck on a bronze planchet left over from decades earlier. That's right, this was supposed to be a zinc-coated penny, but somehow, an old bronze blank from before 1982 slipped through and got stamped with the 1991 design. But that's not the only twist. The strike was perfectly centered, the details razor-sharp. Lincoln's coat, the date, the "In God We Trust," all pristine. The Denver Mint's mint mark was there, but slightly misplaced, making it an unmistakable error. Word spread fast. Photos circulated in collector forums, then in auction houses. And when this penny finally went under the hammer, no one expected what came next. The final bid climbed past $100,000, then $200,000, then $500,000. When the gavel fell, the room erupted. That 1-cent coin had sold for over $1 million. Dealers couldn't believe it. People who had laughed at penny collectors were suddenly digging through jars, drawers, and glove compartments. But what's truly fascinating is that experts now believe there could be more out there. These coins weren't made intentionally. They slipped through the cracks of the mint's transition period, when old blanks and new technology were mixing. That means a few more might have survived, quietly hiding among billions of ordinary coins. And here's the eerie part. Most people will never notice them. They'll spend them without a second thought. Because to the naked eye, it looks like just another penny. But under closer inspection, you'll see the clues that set it apart. First, the color. Genuine 1991. D bronze era pennies have a richer tone, more reddish-brown, not the dull zinc gray of modern cents. Second, the weight. Pull out a scale. A normal 1991 penny weighs about 2.5 grams, but this rare error tips the scale closer to 3.1 grams, a dead giveaway of the older metal composition. And then there's the sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface. The bronze one rings differently. A cleaner, higher ping. Collectors call it the $1,000,000 ping, and for good reason. But even beyond the metal, there's the story. Every coin tells a story of survival. Through minting transitions, melting laws, careless pockets, and time itself. And this 1991 D penny tells a story of how chance can turn a moment into a fortune. But there's another legend surrounding these coins. One was reportedly found by a teenager cleaning out his grandfather's garage. Inside an old glass jar full of coins from the 80s and 90s, he found one that looked slightly darker. His grandfather had been a machinist at the Denver Mint decades earlier. Whether coincidence or fate, that jar held one of the rarest errors of its kind. When experts authenticated it, the family's life changed overnight. Their humble penny became a life-changing windfall worth over $1,000,000. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors started re-examining their 1991 D coins with magnifiers, comparing colors, testing weights, hoping lightning would strike twice. A few more surfaced, each with slight variations. Some had weak mint marks, others had doubling on the date or lettering. Each one sent ripples through the collector community. And it's not just the material error that gives these coins their value, it's the condition. A perfectly preserved example, with a strong strike and original luster, can command astronomical prices. One in mint state condition, verified and graded by a top-tier grading company, broke records when it hit the $1,000,000 mark. But here's the lesson that separates dreamers from finders. Not all rare coins look flashy. Some of the most valuable ones look like they've been in circulation for years. The secret isn't always visible. It's hidden in the details, in the tiny differences that only patient eyes catch. Dealers today still whisper about the hidden batch, a rumor that a small number of bronze planchets were fed into Denver's presses by mistake, producing perhaps 20 to 30 coins before anyone noticed. If that's true, and if even one of those coins survived in circulation, it could still be out there. In a coffee shop till, in a coin jar beside someone's bed, maybe even in your pocket. Collectors were shocked to learn that these coins could have slipped unnoticed through the cracks of everyday life. Imagine the millions of pennies handled every day, and among them, one could hold the power to change everything. Look for the 1991 D date with that slightly off-centered mint mark. Check the coin's weight. Anything around 3.1 grams deserves serious attention. Study the color and surface. Genuine bronze errors often have a smoother, richer texture. And if you spot faint doubling on Lincoln's face or lettering, you may be looking at a multi-million-dollar mistake. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle, not because he was lucky, but because he looked closely. He saw what others ignored. So before you spend that next handful of change, take a second look. Because that dull copper coin could be your ticket to a fortune. The truth is, the Denver Mint's 1991 pennies hold one of the greatest modern mysteries in American coinage. A mix of old metal, minting error, and sheer chance. They've turned ordinary people into overnight millionaires. It was small, brown, and ordinary. At least that's what everyone thought. But when one sharp-eyed collector took a second look, his heartbeat changed. The coin in his palm was a 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and what he discovered next would shock the entire coin world. A coin you've probably spent hundreds of times without thinking twice, sitting quietly in your pocket change, could be worth up to $1.5 million. Sounds impossible, right? But stay with me, because the truth behind this coin's value is more unbelievable than fiction. The year was 1979. Gas was cheap, music was loud, and the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for decades. Nothing about that penny seemed unusual until years later, collectors began noticing strange differences between certain coins. Some bore a bold D or S mint mark, showing they were struck in Denver or San Francisco. But others had nothing. A blank space under the date. No letter. Just silence.at first. No one paid attention. A missing mint mark wasn't unheard of. It happened before, after all. But what made this one so special was that the no mint mark pennies weren't just ordinary blanks. They came from a tiny batch that slipped through quality control, struck under unique die conditions that changed the coin's entire appearance. One man in Illinois found one in his change from a vending machine in the early 1980s. He almost tossed it into a jar. Years later, while cleaning his garage, he took another look, and something about the coin's sharp details and deep copper tone caught his eye. He sent it to be graded. What came back stunned him. Experts confirmed that this penny wasn't just any no mint mark coin. It was struck with a proof quality die, one meant for collector sets, but somehow used for regular circulation coins. That mix-up, that tiny mistake, transformed a 1-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses started buzzing. A coin that could have been found in anyone's pocket was now making headlines. But the story didn't stop there, because what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2019, a private collector quietly bought one of these 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies for over $1 million. Not long after, another surfaced in pristine condition, graded MS-68, and this one shattered expectations, fetching a jaw-dropping $1.5 million in a private sale. The discovery reignited the obsession with Lincoln cents across America. Collectors began digging through their change. Pawn shops got phone calls from people who hadn't looked at their pennies in decades. Suddenly, the humble copper coin became a symbol of hope, proof that hidden fortunes still exist right under our noses. But what makes this coin so valuable isn't just its missing mint mark. It's a combination of rarity, history, and perfection. The 1979 no mint mark Lincoln penny's metal composition marked one of the final years before the U.S. Mint shifted to a cheaper zinc core. That makes these full copper examples even more desirable, especially when struck with those rare, high-polish proof dies. And here's the real kicker. Most people wouldn't even notice the difference. You could stare at it for minutes and never realize you're holding a $1 million penny. But there's one detail that separates it from the rest, and that detail has fooled countless collectors for years. Look carefully under the date. A true 1979 Philadelphia penny with no mint mark should have extremely crisp lettering, sharp Lincoln details, and a mirror-like shine if it's an uncirculated condition. The edge should be smooth, not rounded, and the coin's tone should be a rich reddish copper, not dull brown. But be careful. Not every 1979 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. Millions were struck in Philadelphia that year. The key is the condition, the die variety, and the surface quality. Coins struck from special dies that were meant for proofs, but ended up in regular production, are the holy grail. Those are the coins that turn pocket change into pure gold. One collector described finding his 1979 no mint mark penny in a stack of coins he'd saved from his first job. He said he almost gave them to his grandson for a coin rolling project. Instead, he took a closer look and realized the coin's details were too sharp. It looked different. That coin later appraised for over $900,000, a family legacy born from a single penny. Stories like these spread like wildfire. Coin forums filled with posts of hopeful collectors examining their 1979 cents under bright lights, searching for the telltale signs of perfection. Dealers began hosting special events just to identify these rare pennies. And with every new discovery, prices climbed higher. But why does this matter so much? Because coins like this remind us that history isn't buried in museums. It's jingling in our pockets. Every coin tells a story. Every scratch, every shine, every missing letter carries a whisper of the mint's secrets, a hidden human error that somehow survived decades to reach your hands. And let's be honest, there's something thrilling about knowing a tiny piece of metal could change your life. That a coin you might spend on a cup of coffee could secretly be worth more than a mansion. Collectors often say the joy isn't just in owning the coin, it's in finding it. That moment when you realize the impossible just happened in your own hands. It's not luck, it's curiosity. Patience. The thrill of discovery. Start by checking the weight. A genuine copper coin from that year should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels lighter, around 2.5 grams, it's a later zinc version and not as valuable. Next, inspect the surfaces under a magnifying glass. Proof-like coins will have mirror fields and frosted Lincoln details, a clear sign of a special die strike. Finally, look for perfection. The fewer the marks, the higher the grade. Mint State 67 and 68 coins are where the value explodes. And if you're not sure what you have, send it for professional grading. Companies like PCGS or NGC can turn your curiosity into a certified miracle. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or dig through that old jar of pennies on the dresser, pay attention. History might be staring back at you in copper form. That 1979 no mint Mark Lincoln penny might just be your ticket to a $1 million story. But when the truth came out, collectors realized it could be worth up to $1.6 million. A simple 1973 Lincoln cent. No mint mark, no fancy silver shine, nothing that screams treasure. Yet behind its humble copper face lies one of the most shocking stories in American coin history. It started quietly, just like every other cent minted in 1973. The U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions that year, each stamped with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. But among those billions of coins, a few mysterious pieces slipped through the cracks. Coins without a mint mark, seemingly ordinary, but struck with such precision, detail, and copper purity that experts would later call them the invisible millionaires of the penny world. For years, no one noticed. These coins passed through vending machines, grocery stores, and pockets across America. Then one day, a collector in Illinois stumbled upon a 1973 penny that looked just a bit too perfect. The color was deep and rich, the details razor sharp. When he looked closer, something was off. There was no mint mark beneath the date. He shrugged it off at first, assuming it was normal. But then he saw the coin's luster, flawless, almost proof-like. And that's when the mystery began. That he sent the coin to a grading company, expecting it to be worth a few dollars. But when the results came back, experts were stunned. It wasn't just uncirculated. It was struck with an experimental copper composition and microscopic die variations that didn't match any known records from the Philadelphia Mint. This tiny difference turned an everyday penny into a six-figure masterpiece. And the more collectors looked, the stranger the story got. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire that a rare 1973 no mint Mark Lincoln cent had surfaced, possibly one of only a handful known to exist. Dealers were scrambling, collectors were digging through their old jars, and suddenly everyone wanted to know, how could a simple penny be worth over $1 million? The answer lies in a mix of mystery and timing. You see, in 1973, the U.S. Mint was transitioning between die sets, testing new materials, and adjusting for rising copper costs. Some test strikes were never supposed to leave the mint, yet a few did. These coins were struck on high-grade planchets meant for special proofs, but without the identifying mint marks that would trace them back to their origin. They were perfect, too perfect, and that perfection made them priceless. Collectors were shocked to learn that a single error, a missing mint mark, could be the key to a fortune. It wasn't damage, it wasn't wear, it was a minting fluke that turned copper into gold. Some numismatists even speculated that a handful of 1973 cents were struck with early proof dies, accidentally released into circulation. And each time one surfaces, the price climbs higher, 600,000, 900,000, and finally, at one historic auction, one lucky coin sold for $1.6 million. But here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. One man from Ohio claimed he had the same coin. He pulled it from a roll of pennies he bought at a garage sale for 50 cents. At first, no one believed him. But after weeks of expert analysis, it turned out to be another genuine example. A near-flawless 1973 no mint Mark Lincoln cent with identical die markers. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. If two were found, how many more could still be out there? And that's when collectors across the country started hunting through old coffee cans, dusty drawers, and mason jars filled with loose change. Pawn shops saw a rush of hopeful sellers. Coin dealers reported lines of people asking, "Can you check if this one's the $1 million penny?" The truth is, Most 1973 pennies you'll find are worth only face value. But every so often, one of these extraordinary no-mint mark examples appears, struck so sharply, preserved so perfectly, it defies logic. Experts say to look for a few key signs: crisp lettering on Liberty, a sharp outline around Lincoln's jacket and beard, and a mirror-like finish with no visible mint mark under the date. If you spot those details, don't spend it. Protect it, because that's where the magic lies. The difference between 1 cent and $1 million is often invisible to the untrained eye. It's in the tiny imperfections, the missteps of a machine, the overlooked markings that most people never notice. And yet, every coin tells a story. The 1973 no-mint mark penny isn't just a lucky mistake. It's a symbol of how value can hide in plain sight. It's proof that what looks ordinary might hold the power to change your life. Dealers who once dismissed these coins are now offering record prices. Auction houses are keeping watch for the next big discovery. And coin hunters everywhere are checking their change, hoping lightning strikes twice. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Another's curiosity led to a life-changing find. And for you, maybe it's your turn next up. So before you spend that old penny or toss it into a jar, take one last look at the date. 1973, no mint mark, sharp strike, deep shine. Because this isn't just another cent. This is history, mystery, and fortune all in one small copper disc. But when the truth came out, it shocked every collector in America. A simple 1977 D. Lincoln penny, the kind most people toss into a change jar, turned out to be worth a staggering $1.7 million. And what makes this story so unbelievable is that almost no one knew WHY.it all began in Denver, 1977. The mint was producing billions of 1-cent coins, each stamped with Abraham Lincoln's familiar face and the tiny D mint mark just below the year. To most people, these pennies were worthless. But hidden among them was something extraordinary, a small batch that defied everything the U.S. Mint thought was possible. One of these coins resurfaced decades later. A man from Colorado found it in an old cigar box that had belonged to his late father. He almost threw the box away. But when he noticed the penny's odd shimmer, something about the metal didn't look right. He decided to take a closer look. That decision changed his life forever. He took the coin to a local dealer, expecting maybe a few dollars. But when the dealer looked through his loupe, he froze. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice shaking. The man shrugged. "It's just an old penny." The dealer looked again, his eyes widening. "No," he said. "This isn't just an old penny. This is a mistake the mint tried to erase." You see, in 1977, a handful of Denver pennies were struck using leftover planchets, metal blanks that weren't supposed to exist anymore. Some were made from experimental bronze alloys, others struck with slightly misaligned dies, creating a ghostly doubling effect around Lincoln's date and letters. Most were caught and melted down, but a few, somehow, slipped out. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin was authenticated, experts discovered micro-layer differences in the metal. It wasn't quite copper, not quite zinc. It was a transitional composition that shouldn't exist in 1977. Collectors went wild. Forums lit up overnight. One expert said, "This could rewrite how we think about late-era bronze cents." Another added, "If this coin is real, it's a 7-figure find." And they were right. At auction, the penny started with a modest bid, a few $1,000s. But within minutes, it skyrocketed. 10,000, 50,000, 200,000. Bidders from around the world wanted a piece of it. When the final hammer dropped, the total stunned everyone: $1.7 million. For a single penny, imagine that. Something you could find in your pocket change, now worth more than a luxury home. The key detail lies in the surface and strike. Genuine 1977 D million-dollar errors have a distinct metallic tone, slightly duller than the usual copper glow. The date often shows light doubling, especially on the 1 and the 7s. Some versions display what collectors call a floating D. The mint mark appears slightly off position or even tilted. Under magnification, the edges of Lincoln's jacket and the lettering in Liberty show subtle die doubling, a result of imperfect die alignment during the minting process. Another clue is weight. A normal 1977 D penny should weigh around 3.11 grams if it's copper, but these rare variations can be off by even a fraction, and that tiny difference can mean a fortune. Collectors use precision digital scales and 10x magnifiers to check these differences. But here's where most people go wrong. They see a normal 1977 D penny and assume it's worthless. They don't look close enough. They miss the faint doubling, the odd sheen, the soft edges around the mint mark. All signs of a coin that could change their life. One collector even said, "The first time I saw one, I thought it was damaged. Turns out, it was one of the rarest cents ever struck." Think about that. Something overlooked, dismissed, and forgotten for decades became a symbol of pure luck and persistence. Dealers still talk about that Denver penny. Some believe a few more are still out there, buried in coffee cans, dresser drawers, or old coin jars collecting dust. Every time someone sorts through change, they might be holding a piece of American history, and they don't even realize it. The 1977 D. Lincoln penny teaches a powerful lesson. Fortune favors the observant. It's not about luck. It's about looking closer, paying attention to what everyone else ignores. So, next time you find a penny that looks just a little different, don't toss it aside. Hold it up to the light. Look for that subtle doubling. Weigh it. Study it. Because that could be the one. The coin that changes everything. Collectors were shocked when that first $1.7 million penny appeared. Dealers are still hunting for more. And every day, someone somewhere wonders, could I be next?